Straight through to the halls of Congress. Ms. Giffords' colleagues on both sides of the aisle today expressing both support for her and concern for the safety of everyone who serves their country. A timely concern with this tragedy this past weekend and word just moments ago of an arrest following a threat against Colorado Senator Michael Bennet. Joining us today from Washington, Republican Congressman Trent Franks from Giffords' home state of Arizona. Also joining us, Eliot Engel, Democrat from the state of New York. He was holding his own event in the Bronx when he learned about the shooting. And Congressman, welcome. I thank both of you for joining us this afternoon. Congressman Engel, how have your feelings and thoughts about this changed over the past 48 hours as you've had a chance to digest more of it?
Well, first of all, Gabby Giffords is one of my closest friends in Congress, and I've known her for about 6 years, even before she ran for Congress, and she's just about the nicest, sweetest, kindest person you could ever meet. So it's just a shock that someone you know and someone so kind would be hurt like that. We always know as members of Congress that if someone wants to do harm to you, they probably can. We're in our districts all the time. We're meeting with people. We're shaking hands with random people on the street all the time, going into meetings. And I think everyone feels that we really cannot be impeded to do that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do our job. At the time, as you said, that Gabby was shot, I was in my district on a street corner with a congratulatory proclamation for an establishment that was celebrating its 50th year, and people in the street were walking up to me randomly, and you know, it's the same type of thing. And I've done many town hall meetings like Gabby does in front of supermarkets and in front of shopping centers. We do this kind of thing all the time.
Yeah, Congressman Franks, how do you reconcile the imperative to stay connected in the ways that are described here with the obvious threat that exists in an open society?
Well, first of all, I just want to find complete agreement in all of the words that Eliot Engel just spoke. He is a precious, beloved friend, as well as Gabby Giffords. And I think sometimes that people believe that because there are political gaps in our relationships, that somehow there can't be close personal relationships. And I want you to know that I reject that. Never a cross or acrimonious word has ever passed between myself and Mr. Engel there or Gabby Giffords. And he is exactly right. In a free society, in a free republic like we live in, which is a gift to any people, there are great risks that go with that, because one of the dynamics of our system is that the people, being the bosses of the system, have the right to interact with their leaders. And I have to say to you that I think part of that risk is one that we have to absorb, because I think it would be wrong to allow a monster like Mr. Loeffner to be the sentinel of our debate, and somehow because of the evil that is in him that we would change our way of life. Instead, we need to change the way of life of those who would perpetrate such a despicable act.
Yeah, I want to bring in Joe Russo, who is a former Secret Service agent for President Clinton. And Agent Russo, how do you reconcile the imperative for the connection that exists between the politicians in a representational democracy and the opportunity and obvious security liabilities that are created in any open communication environment?
Well, it's a very difficult situation. As both representatives said, you know, their job is being out there with their constituents in the public. And for a situation like this, from a security perspective, unless you have several layers of security in place, to include weapons detection screening, to include explosive detection, which are the levels you see at the highest of security planning, then it's going to be difficult to prevent this. If you have somebody who has very bad intentions, who has access to weapons, who has a history of mental illness, and is willing to die, then it's very difficult to prevent a situation like this from happening.
Yeah. Congressman Engel, how would you, as a leader in this country, suggest, and it's the same question for you, Congressman Franks, that we channel the energy and the grief of a tragedy like this into and can harness it in a way that allows us to move into not only a healing place, but to a productive place, a place that leads us towards a resolution as opposed to a continued versions of fragmentation and destruction?
Well, the assassin was not only going after a congresswoman, he was really going after the heart of American democracy. We settle things here by ballots, not by bullets, and I think that to prove him wrong, we need to keep on doing what we're doing. However, that's short term. I think long term there needs to be an assessment and a reassessment of what we might be able to implement to make it safer for members of Congress and the Senate to get by and do our duties. And I'm sure I've been in Congress 22 years, and there's never been a bipartisan conference call with every member of Congress as there was yesterday, and we had both leaders of both parties. We had the attending physician's office, we had the Secret Service and the FBI participate, the Sergeant at Arms. We are going to, I think, have to reassess a number of things and try to figure out ways that there might be better protection, understanding that there's no way that you can be totally protected. But I think there will be things. Many years ago, after 9/11, it was suggested to us that we remove the license plates in our cars that identified us as members of Congress. It's voluntary. I did it, and I think 95% of the members do it. Americans, all of us, years ago, we ran onto an airplane, didn't have to check ID or be probed or poked or have anything x-rayed. Today we do it, and we do it routinely, and we accept it. I think that there will have to be some adjustments made for members of Congress.
Your thoughts, Congressman Franks?
Well, I think the thing that we learned from this tragedy more than anything else is what a priceless, delicate gift that life is in the first place. And I hope that somehow that would increase our awareness that each person beside us is a child of God, and that if we did that, if we recognized how delicate this life is and how each one of us is tied to the other, I believe not only would the discussion change, but the objects of our debate would change. And what really happened here was that this person who did this was bereft of those ideals. He didn't have a moral impulse to try to protect innocent human life, and was willing to take it for some twisted goal that he might have, whether it was revenge or some statement that he made. And the bottom line, this is not just a political problem, this is a human problem. We need to realize that each person next to us has the image of God stamped on their souls, and is a miracle that beggars human description. And if we start treating each other with that kind of respect and affection, I truly believe that the world might still have a chance.
It goes to the very basic principles that there is no such thing as us and them, that there really is only us, which was a concept that I think was very prevalent in the culture of this country, certainly after World War II. Has deteriorated somewhat. It goes to some of the conversation I was having with our staff earlier in the day, which is events like this, and it doesn't have to be a horrific tragedy like this, but events like this do create a sense of unity. What's not clear, Congressman Franks, is whether and how it sustains itself.
Well, I would agree with that. I think Eliot Engel is a good example of what happens when you have a person that cares about other people. And Mr. Loeffner has reminded us of the tragedy that can follow when that is not present in a person. So a lot of our societal efforts, I think, should be to try to promote and catalyze this respect for innocent human life and for one another. That's not a new message. A gentleman stood on a hill a long time ago, about 2,000 years ago, and said it better than I did, but it's still very appropriate for today. In the final analysis, life is a miracle, and each person is a miracle, and if we treated each other as such, it might be a lot easier to navigate this journey.
Yeah, lots to meditate on for all of us. Yeah. Congressman Engel, thank you. Congressman Franks, thank you. And Agent Russo, thank you for giving us a slice of your afternoon as well. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the